spare some change for the Sleepy Bones Detective Agency, sir? Thank you. We've fallen on hard times here. They've gone and closed all of the story mines. There's an artificially intelligent sickness spreading amongst the masses, and the only cure is the Bone Zone Half Hour. The only show that won't ask you to scan your face to hear swear words. And another thing. This political tirade has been censored in line with new legislation and guidance. This censored segment is sponsored by our friends at betallofyourmoney.uk. Are you on a break at work? Sexually frustrated by the new restrictions? Hypnotized by the cavalcade of gambling adverts lining the off hours of all aspects of entertainment in this godforsaken country? Be it terrestrial TV, on demand, or just banner adverts everywhere. Why not drop your whole fucking wage on Tombola? That'll solve all of your problems. Look at all these colourful games that, at first glance, look like they're designed for children. Isn't that neat and not concerning at all? And, as a special offer, deposit £1,500 and we'll give you 10 free spins of our digitally rigged dopamine bandit to ensure that you and anybody looking over your shoulder is hooked for life. Whoa, I blanked out for a second there. Where was I? Oh yes. A fool once said, "Hell is empty and all the devils are here." But I've been there on my summer holidays, and actually it is full of murderers. Murderers and comedians. Which brings us nice and quickly to our first and only story of this episode. If you die on stage, you die in real life! Dirk Steveman, richest man in the world, was 5,000 feet up in the air when one simple sentence changed the course of his whole entire goddamn life. Now, to be fair to Dirk, it is very loud 5,000 feet in the air. For one, the wind itself is loud as hell. Nobody ever takes that into account when they speak. But the wind has a voice, and that voice says... Plus, the sound of the jetpacks that Dirk financed and Jack, the other fella in the air, invented, could have drowned out the Macy's Day Parade from 3.5 miles away. Suffice to say, what Dirk Steveman heard his closest cohort Jack say was, "That's funny, dude. Maybe quit your day job, buddy." And that was all it took to uproot the way that Dirk Steveman thought about himself and his life. He didn't even notice that Jack wasn't actually laughing. A warm feeling was busy spreading all throughout his body. The kind of feeling you only really get when you piss your pants, or take a fastball to the stomach if it were covered in numbing cream. Dirk respected Jack in the only way that a man with $1 quadrillion in his bank account could respect a person. Jack Smellchip had never once steered Dirk in the wrong direction before, even when he literally gave his driver incorrect directions to their 2:45 shareholders meeting in San Bernardino. Dirk ended up coming second in the Inland Empire Double Marathon. Second place awarded because the frontrunner was mushed into the grill, and therefore crossed the finish line in first place, albeit posthumously. This cozy little feeling continued to spread from his gristly pork rind heart, worming out through his oozes and insides, all the way to his pocked and smeared outsides, and then out even further, outgrowing his skin and fibers and hairs, past his immediate surroundings, connecting him to the universe as a whole, dialing him into the thoughts and prayers ad infinitum and beyond, folding him through time and space, and all of a sudden he was tucked into his California Super King bed, microwave chili stains on his bootlegged LA Mets t-shirt, doom scrolling through X, the Everything is Alt-Right app. It was the sudden realization that everybody else was living their goddamn American dreams that snapped him out of his vibe walk. He'd coasted all the way through his shift in the jetpack mines, gotten back home to his Grand McMansion, opened his mail, washed his nutsack in the sink, brushed his teeth, ate his dinner, washed his nutsack again, and gotten all nice and tucked up in bed. And all it had taken to break him out of this trance was the realization that No matter how many bedrooms he had tacked onto the side of his 200,000 square foot domain, no matter how many bars of gold he had hidden in his fridge freezer, or how many Bent-bourginis he had in his garage, no matter how many sinks he had built specifically to scrub his nutsack clean, he would never feel whole until he could achieve his truest calling. Dirk Steveman, richest man alive, couldn't buy his own happiness. Dirk Steveman, jetpack dynamo and all-round top shagger, didn't want to be any of those things. Dirk Steveman wanted to be a comedian, LA's bread and butter, America's sweethearts, Earth's mightiest heroes. "Oh, woe is me," he cried, first to himself, and then to the ether as he X'd out a post into nowhere which said much the same, and would only be read by data-glooped robots ready and willing to algorithmically generate new slurs. He scrolled out of bitterness, and he scrolled out of frustration, and as his eyes rolled down to the top and down again, something did finally catch his attention for longer than the instant gratification dopamine snort of a, say, computer-generated dog doing the sock hop. It was an advertisement, but not like an obscure perfume commercial or a webinar on how to be an omega male or a 69-cent sweatshirt made by modern-day slaves, but a plain text, black background, digital flyer for a kind of talent show. A sans serif font sighed and flickered, as if fanned and singed by the .gif flames decorating the bottom third of the one-to-one image. "Strongest way under the heavens. Open mic night. Comedians wanted," is what it said in full. In this case, way was italicized for emphasis, the O's were reversed, each I was dotted with a skull, a night was misspelled with an I, an E, and a T in that order. As if he thought it were the fault of his eyes, Dirk blinked, and with a second of delay, the spelling of night was altered. Now, inexplicably, it was spelled Nighhht, and the .gif flames beneath had become larger, faster, and hotter. Dirk's palm was beginning to sweat just looking at it, and also from feeling it. In conjunction with the image, the bottom third of his iPhone 95 was starting to warm up, and he could feel the bulging of the rolled lithium battery pack within slowly but surely inflating. Partly because he wanted to answer it, and partly to get the goddamn flames off the screen, he clicked on the advertisement, and was directed to a website with even more .gif flames on it. "Ah shit," he said, dropping the phone onto his bedspread, which itself caught aflame. "Just got that phone." He picked himself up, leaving the fire and the flames as they were, and swiftly himself into a different bedroom, one on the eastern wing of the house instead. It had only recently been put up, as was alluded to earlier, and it was far enough away that, were the fire to spread, he'd be alright for a good couple of days before he'd have to do something about it. Fortunately, while his comforter was made of the most expensive, untreated cotton in the world, and would likely not survive the fury, his bed frame was made out of the cheapest asbestos, and would hopefully put it out without a second thought. Dirk loaded up his desktop computer and bought himself an iPhone 96. It hadn't been invented yet, but he figured that as long as he sent enough money to enough of the right-ish places, one would find itself on his doorstep before he could forget he'd ordered it. At this point, he'd very much forgotten all about the advertisement, and therefore the fire in the other bedroom. But the universe, or whoever was pulling the strings at the time, didn't quite fancy having that happen. As was a common occurrence in the world of uncontrollable wealth, Dirk was concurrently the richest man alive, but also the dumbest loser alive. He closed off his web browser, but it opened itself back up again.
"Do you think you're the funniest man in the world?"
asked that same sans serif text. This time, it appeared whomsoever was in charge of the advertising arm of this open mic night had learned their lesson, as instead of .gif flames there was a .gif fire extinguisher in the lower left corner, and in the lower right corner, getting absolutely doused in clumps of white gunk, was a low-resolution depiction of Dirk's inflamed room. "No?" he said out loud to the computer. In response, the CD tray opened. There was nothing in it, nor nothing to it. It was a coincidence. His printer flicked on too. That one felt less like a coincidence, as if the malevolent marketing spirit behind this haunted website had a leaflet it wanted to deliver. But unfortunately for it, there was no ink cartridge slotted into the device. Even for Dirk Steveman, IQ in the negatives, printer ink felt like a racket.
"Well, would you like to be the funniest man in the world?"
rephrased the website. "Yes," he said out loud to the computer.
"Thank Christ,"
it wrote.
"Sign up today."
And this time, the words were bordered by a clickable box. A button, one might call it, colored a simple gradient of bone white to bone yellow. Scientifically proven to be the funniest of all the colors, at least in Dirk's opinion, which, since it is backed by all of the money in the world, was scientifically proven to be the most correct of all opinions. He would like to be the funniest man in the world, but was a competition really the answer to that?
Yes!
Fair enough. He clicked the button with his cursor, presuming, as many do, that the computer had his best interests at heart. In response, up popped a very long and uninteresting contract and terms of service script, written in the smallest type that Dirk had ever seen, in a gaudy 3D red font, on a beige paper-textured background, which will now, for posterity, be read in full at 69 times speed. Dirk Steveman did not read much, if any, of this. He gave it a good go, but the second he got to a word that he did not know or recognize immediately, he started smacking his keyboard against the top of his desk like a reckless chimp, sending keycaps and springs across the room, and the computer, feeling threatened for the first time in its life, scrolled way, way down to bring him up close and personal with the real clincher. The reason he'd actually gone ahead with this nonsense.
"Grand prize winner gets one wish,"
said the computer, reading it aloud for him, in case his attention wavered once more. Like, what kind of wish?
"Any Jesus Christ! Do you want to try and win the wish or what, buddy boy?"
He ticked the I agree box, digitally signing his name as Dirk Steveman because of the missing keys, and hit enter. A chill entered the room. The contract began to fade out into black, leaving slick red stains on his computer screen, which came off with a dab of his thumb. It smelled of copper, and it also tasted like copper. It took him a long, long time to get it all off the screen. So long, in fact, that it made him a big sleepy boy. As if the computer had sucked off all his energy, he fell backwards onto his bed and let himself forget all about the strange happenings around him. Forget all about that nice warm feeling. Forget all about the fire that had carved its way through his home. Forget all about that suspicious, legally binding contract that had made his computer screen literally bleed words into the real world, and instead let himself dream that he had already made his one wish, and now, with no equal, he was the funniest man in the world, and everybody loved him, especially the ladies, because ladies very traditionally love big comedians, and especially the men, because he was not that picky. At 4 in the morning, Dirk awakes, not to piss as usual, but instead stirred by a sound that he had only ever heard in the movies that his very famous executive producer father had executively produced. An old-style "Ooga" horn piping itself up through his bedroom window. This, in Dirk's dream-mangled noggin, meant that it was not real. Again, it sounded, and again, he stirred.
Hey!
Called a thick soup of a voice, the same voice that the computer had used, minus the computery effect.
It's for you, jackass! Hey! Dirk Steveman! All caps! I know you're in there, buddy boy!
Once, twice, thrice more times, and Dirk Steveman well and truly got the message. He was no longer dreaming. He was awake in the cruel, cruel world. He respected the imperativeness of the demand. But he was still quite sleepy, and had to peel himself up, smack on his slippers, schlick into his 3/4-length, slack-tied velour housecoat, and knork himself out of the door by force, all whilst bleary-eyed from his REM cycle, and bleary-eared from the horn. Slidled up to his front gate was, by all definitions, a creature, by some definitions, a chauffeur, and by no definitions whatsoever, a friend. Head of a pumpkin, plump and orange, big pot-belly under a stained white undershirt, with a badge over his heart that reads, "I heart comedy, brackets, but I hate comedians," closed brackets. A blonde bush sticks out round the back of his neck. At around the elbow mark, his arms turned skeletal. His teeth were carved out of the pumpkin, like a jack-o'-lantern, and a candle sits where his tongue might once have been, like a jack-o'-lantern. And there was a fat blunt sticking out of the side of his mouth, like Dirk's Irish neighbour, Jack-o'-lantern, which was lit on both sides on account of the tongue candle situation he had going on. A small amount of blonde hair stuck straight out of the top of the pumpkin, slicked back with gel. There was none on the spot where the stalk would have usually been. On the Norwood scale, he was somewhere between a 6 and a 7. He was hunched over, sitting on the driver's side of an Oldsmobile Model 6C, his right arm leaning over the side, tapping an inconsistent beat into the singed wooden frame, hanging in such a way that it seemed like he used to have an offensive tattoo on display somewhere there.
Hey, buddy boy!
Said the pumpkin fella, pointing one of his slender, bone fingers in Dirk's direction.
You got the cleanest goddamn nutsack I ever did see!
Dirk had neglected to put on trousers. Again. The pumpkin fella, who would later and off-camera introduce himself as Christopher the fucking Pumpkin, snapped those slender finger bones, and, with a little twinkle and a gust of ice-cold air that caused major shrinkage, Dirk found himself wearing a pair of cotton, rubber ducky print pajama pants.
Hop on then, lad! We don't have all night!
Where are we going?
You signed the contract, didn't ya?
Asked Christopher, inhaling the last inch of his blunt, as if it were a passing fly, and clunking the Oldsmobile into 6th gear.
We're going downtown, buddy boy! Way downtown! Yeehaw!
And down is exactly where they went. In a fit, the engine coughed, the kind of cough only coughed by those with 3 to 4 weeks left. Its wheels span in place, kicking up smoke as thick as Dirk himself all around them. After a moment, Dirk was met with a shock, and a slam, and a shudder, as the Oldsmobile began to clip through the road beneath them before being jerked straight downwards to their destination. Constant threads of smoke blinded Dirk from seeing where they were actually going, but he figured by the increasing heat and stink all around them that they were either heading towards San Vicente or the highway to hell. Christopher the fucking Pumpkin pulled up amongst the fire and brimstone, and it still wasn't quite clear where they were. Here, the ground was hot, and the air was hot, and the vibe was just right for comedy. Ahead of them, Dirk could see a colonial-style house which had been spared from the flames. A flashing neon sign attached to the facade read, "Yuck Yuck Hut."
You're gonna go in there,
he said.
and you're gonna win for you, and you're gonna win for me.
Christopher grasped Dirk's shoulders with his bony hands, and it hurt. He shook him, looked him deep in the eyes, and said,
You're the funniest cunt in the world, Dirk Steveman.
"Thanks, Christopher," said Dirk. "This sure is a weird dream."
Ha ha ha! We've all got weird dreams,
said Christopher.
I want to make massage chairs for bees.
That is weird, Christopher.
Go fuck yourself, Dirk.
And with that, Christopher the fucking Pumpkin smacked him on the ass, kissed him on the cheek, and pointed him in the direction of the green room. And oh, was it a very green room. It was so green that it didn't even have dimensions. It was as big as it needed to be, and as small as it didn't need to be. It held a lot of bodies, many of which were funny looking, which was a tick in the plus column for a group of comedians. Dirk did not recognize a single one of them, and at that moment, too deep in the slimy underbelly of stand-up for him to realize that he had never actually seen any live stand-up comedy. In fact, the only stand-up comedy he had ever seen was a DVD of Peter Kay back in 2006 that his big shot executive producer father had brought home. Furniture in this, the greenest room, was non-existent. Just a single fold-out Amazon.com table for rider refreshments. 2 big glass salad bowls of muesli, labeled wet and damp, Dirk's personal favourite snack, and tap temperature water served in a big black boot, another personal favourite. He helped himself to all 3 as the other comedians milled about, nervous as all hell it seemed. Must have been a big deal for a lot of this group. Maybe their careers or even their lives depended on it going well. Dirk lacked that motivation. 1, because he was still pretty certain that this was a dream, and, to be honest, that was fair enough. Additionally, he was, in fact, the richest man in the world, and he could essentially try his hand at anything, be bad at it, and still be celebrated by irks and jerks around the globe with little to no risk to his personal life whatsoever. As he scooped big mittens of muesli into his whiskey hole, Dirk was tapped on the shoulder by a man about 4 feet tall. He had to jump to get a tap in, which more alerted Dirk to his presence than the actual notification. He said,
"Alright, but my name's Stimp Bimblow, and I'm the funniest little guy."
And then he kissed him on the cheek. "A lot of kissing here," said Dirk.
"Oh, aye. Welcome to hell,"
said Stimp, kissing him on the cheek again. "This is hell," said Dirk. "My personal hell. I do not like getting delicate little kisses on my cheek."
"There's nothing wrong with it, but we all do this in Hollywood, and we all do this in hell."
"You don't sound like you're from Hollywood," said Dirk. "You sound like you're from Wales."
"I don't think I do, but I am trying very hard,"
he said, planting another delicate little kiss on Dirk's cheek.
Stimp Bimblow, please attend yourself to the stage, please. We need you to come up on the stage. It's time for you to do your comedy for the devil. That's the concept. My name's Christopher the fucking Pumpkin, and I'm the MC. That's where I showed up before.
"Yeah, but that's me. It's time for me to do my comedy for the devil. That's the concept of the comedy tournament that we're at."
That's a funny thing to say.
"I haven't even gotten started yet, boyo. Hate to break it to you, but I'm the funniest little fella in the world, and I'm gonna survive this ordeal, which unfortunately means that you will not."
"Oh no, I'll be fine," said Dirk. "Even if I'm not funny, I am very rich."
"Don't worry. I will use my wish to bring all of you back,"
said Stimp, cryptically, as he walked off into the vast greenness of the green room of hell. "What a shit," said Dirk. Now, dear listener, not to break kayfabe or anything, but I have to tell you that Dirk did not see what follows. He was too busy searching the infinite corners of the green room for a bathroom so that he could wash his nutsack clean. He wasn't nervous. That's not like a nervous tic that he has. He was just feeling quite sweaty, and rightly so. And it was just nice to do it sometimes. Also, because of his immense wealth and status, he'd been able to wash it at any given time in his life, and it had always been the right thing to do. So why would it not be the right thing to do here? On stage, Stimp Bimblow took the stage. He could not see the audience on account of all the fire and the smoke in his tiny Welsh eyes. The stage itself was quite nice. It had a good, solid wooden floor and curtains, and that was more than he'd seen on the Los Angeles circuit, where the stage was usually a car park or under the bridge where they did that race in Greece. He picked up the microphone, did a little kiss on it to test that it was working, and then he turned to the key on the engine of his Tight 5. Yabba yabba yabba. Not a laugh in the house. Dibble dooble dob. Still nothing. Banana, da-na-na, na-na! At the strike of the punchline, right before it connected to the laugh chin of his boiling audience, where it would usually get a solid chuckle out of the conservative losers that tended to buy his tickets, there was not just a silence, but a loud, kind of booing noise. It was a boo. He dropped the microphone. Not in an I'm the best kind of way, but in an I'm scared and I'm weeing myself kind of way, as the audience began chanting, "Fuck this guy! Fuck this guy! This guy stinky! This guy stinky!" And "Kill him! Kill him!" A big red hoof, owner unknown but easily guessable, extended from the blistering shadows to smack a big red button. Gears clinked and chugged. They needed greasing. And out from behind the stage left curtain sprung an even bigger, even redder boxing glove on an even bigger metal spring. It obliterated Stimp Bimblow. His skin and organs stayed on the spot, but his skeleton was punched clear out of his body. For a second, his heart continued to beat off in his wet bag of a shell, before it and all of its contents splumped into a pile on the ground. Again, not to break kayfabe, but Dirk did not see this. He also did not find a bathroom. In hell, they simply shit and piss where they stand and then magic it away, which is probably where she got the idea from, lads. Now, in the green room, there was a flat-screen television with a view of the stage. He was beginning to feel a couple of nerves, which was a new feeling for him, though, to be honest, any feeling that couldn't be filed under boredom or despise was new to Dirk. He didn't actually know any jokes, which was bad form for a comedian. He was just gonna wing it. If it didn't go well, he assured himself, he'd simply go back to being the richest man in the world. Easy as bud.
Chint, Smitman, Chint, hello, come to the stage please, Chint, if you don't mind, come to the stage, that'll be grand, thank you very much.
Chunt, a square-jaw, 6-foot sunburn of a woman, teetered vaguely into the wild green yonder, and eventually appeared on the television screen. Dirk, like the rest of the comedians, watched as she took a deep breath and started deadpanning into the microphone with marionette gestures and, towards the end, a little dance. It was impossible to tell whether or not she was getting a laugh, and not only because Dirk had never spoken to a woman in his life. The television did not have a direct feed of audio. It had a Dolby Atmos soundbar, other brands are available, but all it emitted was a screeching sort of brown noise which made Dirk's stomach turn upside down. "Aw, gee, it ain't looking good," said one of the contestants. And, as they said that, The floor seemed to open up beneath Chunt Schmidtmar, and she kicked and ran in place for a solid 5 seconds like a cartoon coyote, before plunging to her death. Her eyeballs, left in space and momentarily freed from their sockets, turned to face the camera for just long enough to blink in exasperation, before coming down hard like the rest of her. What the fuck was that? Asked Dirk to the... No, actually, what the fuck was that? Let's not piss around here, lads. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, did Chunt Schmidtmar really just get WB plummeted to death? What is happening here? Oh my god! Oh no! Around him was not the throngs of fear and madness that he had expected and displayed, but heavy judgment, as if he'd snapped his fingers at a waiter in public. Dude, did you not read the contract? Asked a woman so nervous that her voice was shaking like the San Andreas fault. She was sweating like she knew that her name was getting tweeted out by teenagers. Her eyes were hollow and almost all whites. Her teeth had chattered so much that they were all cracked and broken and almost all reds. She was pulling big clumps of her hair out and tying them into tiny nooses. This is hell. Real hell. We're all in hell, and this is our last-ditch effort to realize our dreams. I thought this was an open mic night. It is, she said. For the devil. Like the biblical devil.
Management would like to remind the contestants that the origin of the devil in question is not to be examined in any depth whatsoever.
Let's not get into semantics, she said, giving him a little kiss on the cheek. It's not the one you're thinking of anyway. So this isn't the Christian hell then? No, this is a legally distinct hell with no religious intonation. This devil wants one thing, and that's to laugh, but nobody has ever been able to make them laugh. I don't even think they have a sense of humor, she said. If you die on stage, you die in real life. For some reason, I feel like I should have seen this coming. One by one, the remaining contestants were called onto the stage. Blip Goman, Shrew Bodonksky, Dick Shrink, Itsy Bitsy McGinty, Max Scherzer Jr., Morven Runk, Mark Jones, Jark Moans, Millie and the Bandits, Schlepponi Pischetti, Ed D. Onions, Hip Hip Badingus, Daniel the Rat Boy Stink, Forget Manat, and Smegmo Constantinople III, who was third to last, leaving only one contestant before it would be Dirk's turn to die. And he was going to die. There was no doubt about it. He was pacing around like a nutcase, almost alone now in the green room with only the one person left. It was hard to get a look at him, but he was hairy and round, clutching his head between his knees and rocking back and forth like a cursed doll. Dirk didn't even know where to start. He was going to Google funny joke, but he'd lost his phone earlier in the story, so despite what my outline seems to say, he couldn't do this even as a misdirect. Instead, he gave up. Not relinquishing him to his fate, but deciding to flee with his still very clean nutsack still intact. Walking himself around the infinite green room, he notices a big old convenient-looking set of double doors labeled Fire, which he pushes into. Behind them, Dirk spies 3 large chaps made entirely out of flames, all huddled together, holding hands, sharing a large cigarette, and kissing each other on the cheek. Occupied, they say in unison. Sorry, lads, says Dirk, closing the door and continuing his search, which ends, of course, unrequited.
Gambus Gamble, that's the name of the card, which means that must be the name we're calling. Gambus Gamble, please come to the stage and present your butthole, by which I mean bare your soul. It's comedy time, baby, let's fucking go!
Dirk slumps to the ground like dog shit fresh out of the tube, Oh, it is over. He is going to die. Unfunny, unloved, and untouched by both women and men, all the prior cheeky little kisses notwithstanding. He put his big square head into his big square hand, smacked himself, and really pleaded with whichever god corresponded with this particular devil to let him out and get him home to his Grand McMansion. After all, didn't he deserve special treatment because he was rich? He opened his eyes, prayers unanswered, to see a kind of attic door in the ceiling above him. Oh! Prayers answered. I knew I deserved special treatment, he said to himself. Whichever god you are, you're about to be very, very rich. I appreciate it, brother. He figured, see, that because hell was supposed to be beneath the earth, going up could only get him out of it. It didn't. He poked his big square head up, only to find himself behind the stage. A pair of huge, round stage lights pasted his silhouette onto the curtain, making sure that he did not go unnoticed. He'd made a serious error, and was about to get the brunt for it.
Wait! Who's that?
Cried Christopher the fucking Pumpkin, the MC of this event.
Why, it's Dirk Steveman, raring to give the devil his due. Come on up, buddy boy. You guys can work together as a team or whatever. I don't know. I mean, we're cutting it pretty close to the half-hour mark, and God forbid we don't stick to the alliterative time constraint.
Dirk pulled himself up and out of the hole, and approached the stage with the opposite of swagger in his step. He could, just about, see the devil himself sitting completely nude in the middle of his audience, stink lines emanating off him, his legs crossed to cover what hung between them. He was about 50 times larger than any of his peons, and he had hooves for both his feet and hands, which seemed very inconvenient. He had curled horns like that of a ram's, and they were half hidden by one of those big sports helmets with the 2 cups on them, both with just the wet dregs of a blue raspberry slushy in them. Dirk took up some space beside Gumbus, cleared his throat, and said the first thing that came to mind.
Boy, it's hot in here.
Gumbus said nothing. He couldn't say anything, for he was a chimp, and chimps do not speak English, nor any other language decipherable by man or devil. In sync, the audience called out,
How hot is it?
What?
Dirk said.
Well, it's hot as hell.
Beat. Laughter? Wait, really? Actual laughter? Could they really think he was funny? He couldn't prove it, but Dirk was certain that even the king of demons himself did a sensible chuckle. A devilish little tee-hee. Dirk had, successfully, uncorked the wine of funny, and flow it did. He didn't know where it came from, maybe he'd heard one of his assistants say it sometime, but he started to tell a joke from the back of his very own head.
Fella goes into a store looking for some cheap cuts of meat for a sandwich. He strides over to the guy wearing the apron behind the counter and he says, Hey fella, I'm looking to make a sandwich. Now I heard you're the best goddamn butcher in this town, and I want to get 50 slices of your top-of-the-line honey-baked ham. The fella in the apron cocks his head a little bit and looks absolutely flabbergasted. Nope, sorry sir, not here, he says. That's a shame. Oh well, okay. Can I instead get 20 slices of your middle-of-the-road pastrami? I mean, you've gotta have pastrami, right? The fella in the apron, he crosses his arms and sighs and says, No sir, not here, not ever. Angry now. The guy says, Geez, brother, you're killing me. Okay, how about 10 slices of your bottom-of-the-barrel corned beef, huh? Can you do that for me? The fella in the apron, red-faced now, says, Hey, dumbass, did you not read the sign? We've got strawberry, cranberry, and grape here at the Jellicatessen.
beat. More laughter? Way, way, way more laughter. Too much laughter. What the fuck is going on here? Even the goddamn chimp was laughing, and, as established earlier, he doesn't speak fucking English. This time, there was no doubt about it. The devil was laughing. Laughing so hard that he knocked his drink hat off his head. Laughing so hard that he started pissing. Pissing all over the place. Pissing so much that he drowned the front row and they all died. He reached in his stupor and smacked that big red button for the last time tonight. Down fell a guillotine, which slammed in the space between Dirk and Gumbus Gumball, the chimpanzee. Out of the shining steel of the guillotine, or guillotine as I said earlier, grew a man's arm, and that man's arm gave Dirk a big ol' thumbs up.
God damn it, Dick Seaman,
said the devil,
you've made it to the next round. Now get out of here. Run on back and tell your mama you've done it.
You're a star, baby. Way to go. Thank you, Dick Seaman.
And thank you for listening.
This has been the Sleepy Bones Detective Agency, jet streaming India ink down your ears like milk out of the window of a Mazda Miata. You have been listening to the Bone Zone Half Hour, the only half hour that is actually 38 minutes. 52 minutes? 45 minutes. I have been your host, Jake Lucy, and I will continue to be that until my butthole falls off and I die from a terminal case of lack of butthole. This audio zine is copyright 2025. All resemblance to actual persons, living or dead or the devil, is purely coincidental, even the ones that aren't. If you enjoyed this show, get your piggy bank out and give us all your loose change at patreon.com/SBDA. We can also be found on Spotify, where this show is being used to fund artificially intelligent weapons, or on YouTube, where something else nefarious is probably happening. Or you can just go to carefulthere'sbones.com and cut out the middleman, sort of. Until next time, remember to have a good night, keep your jaw clenched at all times, and never stop consuming content. Never stop consuming content. Never stop consuming content. Stay safe, or don't!